Hello and welcome to Purple Space Cascade of Thoughts. I'm Ira and I'll be your host today, along with the founder of Purple Space here, which is Aryan Ajay. Today, as for guests, we have the founders of Alumni Somnia, who strive towards empowering students with their different initiatives that they've taken under this project. So, welcome.
Hi, happy to be here.
Hi.
Hello. Would you guys please tell us a little about yourselves?
So I'll let Ishaan start.
Okay. My name's Ishaan Singh. I'm a student in the 11th grade in the IB program at Aditya Birla World Academy, Mumbai. I am hopefully going to pursue a major in computer science in the future. I am obsessed with coding, problem solving, and one of the problems Siddhant and I noticed in the market when we were coming up with our own projects was the lack of funding and guidance for such type of projects, for student projects, for startups. And we sort of had like a combined eureka moment, which was kind of mutual, wherein like we're like, yeah, this is what we should do, and this is how we're going to impact society in the most meaningful way that as students we can without being overdone, like a lot of the other projects we've seen. So instead of us making one singular project, we plan to help millions. Okay, millions is a little exaggeration, but at least hundreds of kids make lots of projects in India. And especially because the number of projects that are being made in India right now has vastly increased, especially because of newer curriculums coming in. Um, it's a great opportunity for people to come learn from professionals all around the world, like professors from all the big universities in India and outside of India, learn from CEOs of the largest companies, and get some funding through our funding partners and through us.
Hi, my name is Siddhant Sukhani. I am a student at Jeshi Periwal International School, also in the 11th grade. And I love math. Anything I do, I relate math to it. Math and finance. Those are the two key things that make up my day. It's literally math and finance. And while I was studying math, and I saw so many projects going on and so many projects starting up, especially during these times of COVID, where students have a lot more free time and have less of an academic burden. At least according to me, there's less of an academic burden during these times. So students have the ability to create more projects, to innovate. And what Ishaan and I both noticed was that this ability to innovate is always there in students. It's just come out more during these times. And what we plan to do is, what our plan with Alumni Somnia is at least, is to get funding and is to catalyze the startup process within India for students. Because if you compare it to the US, normally in the US, students receive a lot of funding and students are inclined towards making projects, right? Like in the US college system, you are actually given credits if you make a project. And it's not like that in India. And what we essentially plan to do is to make projects worthwhile, to make sure that these projects of students actually get to places and it's not just a side task that you brush off your shoulder once one or two assignments are done.
All right, that's an amazing initiative that you guys have taken up. Aryan?
Siddhant, you mentioned about how the Indian education system lacks fundings and does not support creative startups for the youth. And yet in India, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a huge increase in not only youth-run startups, but regular startups as well. So as you guys go forward with this amazing initiative of yours to provide funding for more youth startups and to provide knowledge as well, do you guys feel that the Indian education system also needs to make a slight change in their working to increase the creativity and productivity of such stuff?
So I'll answer this. So what I think is, especially because I was in an ICSE school for a relatively long time, I think that's how I know Aryan. So because I was in ICSE school, I kind of have first-hand knowledge of the type of stuff you do. And more or less, it's primarily textbook work. They have tried to introduce project-based learning in schools now, which I think is amazing. And there are obviously innovation melas and science fairs and lots of stuff that goes on at these schools. But I think especially in India, as far as student-led projects go, I think the implementation of international curriculums and access of students to go abroad has made students more aware of the concept of making projects, startups, doing different ventures. So I think we can attest the greater increase. So obviously the government and the boards currently run like the ICSE and CBSE have a large part to play. But I think a majority of that is coming from the implementation of the IB in India, IGCSE curriculums in India. And then more than all of that is the number of students going to international universities. So everyone in the US keeps talking about a holistic development. And a holistic development involves some amount of entrepreneurial knowledge and technical knowledge. And I think from an Indian standpoint, our technical knowledge is great. And our application of science and math is amazing. That's why we're coveted all around the world. But something we don't get enough credit for is our entrepreneurial ability. And I mean, you can just take a look around India now and you'll see some of the greatest entrepreneurs. And they aren't getting the same amount of recognition. Like I'm talking about young entrepreneurs here. They're not getting the same amount of recognition as people in the US or in France, or in the UK. And that's primarily because this number of people doing it isn't enough, and it started to grow. So because of that, we started Alumni Somnia. And I think in order for the Indian education system to truly allow people to come into this, uh, obviously we have to keep up the academic rigor, but there should be, I'd say, allotted time for students to be able to pursue a project in their interest. So I have a friend in Dubai right now who's holding a statewide art competition, and she's doing that in her spare time because her school is allowing her to do that. So she's in the IB curriculum. So her school has allotted certain amount of time for her to do that. And the competition has been written about in Gulf News and various major publications. And I think it's primarily because she's been given the opportunity from school itself, and she's been given those resources in order to do that. And I think ICSE and CBSE have to be a little more progressive in the way that they allow students to get that holistic development so that they can get into the IITs of India, but they can also get into the MITs and the Stanfords.
All right. As students yourself, I'd like to ask you this question. Why do you think is it important for the youth to put their foot down and finally shape a way for our future?
So I think I can take this one. Uh, well, simply put, the youth is the face of the future. We recognize the problems of today and we know them better than, well, most people around us, right? And this is our generation. Our generation, like one of our webinar speakers actually stated, is better than the last and better than the future, right? Because we're in this sort of middle ground where we can not only innovate ourselves, but we also have the resources to be one of the most academically talented batches cohorts out there. So what we strongly believe is that students should innovate because they have the potential to, and because they know how to solve the problems of tomorrow. When you look at student entrepreneurs all over India and even all around the world, they're solving problems that many experienced entrepreneurs haven't even recognized. And this is solely because students have more knowledge of what their future is going to be like. They know what their future is going to be like and they would like to shape it.
All right. That's a pretty good answer. Aryan?
Yeah. So you guys are clearly, the initiative is clearly brilliant. You guys are empowering the youth. And you guys also engage with a lot of professionals, a lot of experienced members of the society that have achieved their goals. So you guys have conducted multiple webinars. I think so 2 webinars till now. So
3 webinars, yeah.
Yeah, 3. So what is the main advice that you would like to give to the youth that you have taken from these webinars and these interaction with professionals that you've had on how to pursue a dream and a goal amidst all the obstacles that a person faces?
So I'm actually gonna quote something that our last webinar speaker, Mr. Dilip, said. He said the fact that we're able to see out opportunities at such a long, like such a small age as such, is firstly a benefit of just how much we've been exposed to. But more than that, what he's tried to say throughout the webinar was start early. Because the thing is, right now, our minds are like trained to work as optimally as possible, and we recognize opportunity a lot faster than most people. Since we're kids, since we have the exposure to literally everything all around the world at our fingertips, since we have information at the touch of a button, we have the opportunity to revolutionize fields faster than anyone before. And in order to bring the future that everyone's been talking about, like digital awareness for everyone, everything can be digital, everything's going to be autonomous, so that everything's going to be convenient. In order to do that, we have to start early, we have to start young. We can't just rely on the current generation to fix problems that are there and to create stuff for us. Now, more often than not, we're going to find, I'd say, between high school students and college graduates, that's going to be the perfect age to start a project and to start something big. I mean, we don't even have to go back that far to think of the biggest, like the last insanely large project that was started by a student that's now worth $450 billion, right? I'm talking about a dorm room student by the name of Mark Zuckerberg, who started Facebook at the age of 22. So that's just about the time of a college graduate. Now, you can look further on, and you've got various number of student projects that are getting backed by the UN. They're getting bought over by Facebook. We have a 15-year-old right now who's interning at Facebook, who's a personal friend of mine. I have a friend who's working at NASA as a job as a 19-year-old. He got graduated from MIT in 2 years. We have students who have insane capabilities, and the fact of the matter is that they have the opportunity now to do it. It's just you have to start young. And everyone who I know who succeeded in their pathways has started young and realized this is the problem that I face in my society. How am I going to fix it? And then they work to fix that goal. And Mr. Dilip's message resonates with everyone at Alumni Somnia and everyone I speak to. It's start young and focus your time on it, because you're never going to get the same opportunities that you have right now later on in life, because you're going to get so caught up in the mundane, like routine of life, that you're never going to focus back on projects that you could have started, that you could have made a difference. So that's why start young.
All right, that's another incredible answer right there. The name Alumni Somnia strikes as a very unique one. Why did you guys choose this name?
I'm going to let Sid answer this, because he's the one who came up with the name.
Okay, so I remember it was Ishaan and I were literally like, we thought of the idea and we were like, yes, this is perfect. But we couldn't think of a name. And I feel like a lot of startups nowadays struggle to find a unique name that stands out to everyone. So we began researching, we looked up every website, we looked up every single name we thought of, and we couldn't think of a good name. At the end of the day, we thought of two simple words: student and dream, because that's what our organization stands for. It stands for bringing out students' dreams and to make them a reality, right? So essentially what Alumni Somnia does mean is it's Latin. It means students' dream. And that's the perfect way to represent our organization.
Aryan?
Yeah, that was a brilliant answer. That's actually pretty inspiring how you came up with a brilliant name. So, Alumni Somnia has been going on for a couple of months in quarantine, of course, and we've seen a lot of projects starting for it during this lockdown and in 2020 in general. So, do you guys feel like after this year, after the lockdown's over, there's going to be a huge impact on the Indian market, not only in terms of the impact that the youth is going to make in the future, but also the impact in general?
So, I mean, I think you can look at the market as a whole right now. So let's take financial market and let's say production market or product market. So as we look at the financial market, it went kind of into a tailspin after COVID. And now, I mean, it's starting to get restored, but it's still in a tailspin. Businesses aren't opening up. I mean, they're struggling. Even the large businesses are struggling. Small business market is collapsing. And because of that, it's sad to say, but it's somewhat opportunistic from students. It's their time to shine now. I mean, I've been speaking to a couple professionals while talking to them about Alumni Somnia, and they all said they expected student projects to become the new norm in 20 years. But that 20-year timeline has shortened because of the COVID, because they've realized they can't rely on old technology anymore. I mean, the whole world got flipped on its head because of one pandemic. And that's not the only problems we're going to have. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why student projects are emerging so quickly now. I mean, COVID funds are one thing, which is an amazing opportunity for people. Like, it's an amazing opportunity for people to raise money for a very important issue. But then we also see students who possibly have done stuff in science fairs, right, in the past, and they are innovative kids and they're good at science, they're good at math, or they're good at humanity subjects. And now they're realizing and they're capitalizing on the opportunity that they have that, okay, the existing businesses aren't doing great. And that's because they're using old methodology. What do I do? Change the methodology. And the only way an industry succeeds is if it's disruptive. I think Siddhant can attest to this the most because he wants to get into fintech. And I think fintech is one of the most disruptive fields, especially now. It's been undervalued for a very, very long time. It's now starting to get recognition from a lot of more people. And because of that, you can just take fintech as a perfect example of why something new, especially when the world is in a tailspin, is always a good thing. And that's why I think student projects, especially now, because the world is in a tailspin, is a very good thing. Now, as far as the production market goes, our access to resources has been limited because of the lack of physical interaction. I mean, we saw the WTI go into negative numbers recently. So as far as quantitative goods go, that's been a bit of a problem. So that's where you see tech industries, you see teaching, you see education fields boom. So, I mean, Zoom is the perfect example of that. They've had a 300% growth in their stock price. Then you can look at, I mean, Skype, Netflix, all that stuff is all normal. But then you look at companies like Cognizant and Microsoft who are using the COVID to develop new technologies. A lot of my friends have recently been getting into programming. And I mean, I've always been into programming for a very long time. So I genuinely enjoy seeing more people get into it. And programming is going to be the new I mean, it's already disruptive, but it's going to be the new norm for people. Because I mean, everything's going to be digital soon. And we're seeing that shift happen a lot quicker. Now, because of, especially this, primarily because of the pandemic, the youth has been more accustomed to doing things digitally. And that's why the youth is going to thrive the most, especially in this time. So, I mean, no offense to any of the second generation people watching this podcast, but the way the youth captures knowledge and captures information is going to be a lot better than any of the older generations, primarily because we've grown up on the digital age. And because of that, we're going to be able to succeed a lot faster than other people after the pandemic. And that's why I think the need for student projects is crucial.
I absolutely agree with that. And you talked about generations, which reminds me, and this is another youth-based question, which is again probably my signature question, but do you think the society is extremely ageist, as in they are really keen on putting age as a restricting factor? So do you agree with that, or do you guys have second thoughts?
So I think I can take this one. It depends on the industry you're looking at, right? For example, student internships are booming everywhere. All the organizations want students working with them because students are the innovators of the future. Then that's what Alumni Somnia is based off, helping the innovators of the future. Being ageist is something very particular to some organizations that require experience, require skill. And I feel like that's only possible after a few years of education, after a few years after you've had a job. But for some industries, like Ishaan said, for programming, there's no age, right? For anyone interested in computer science, there's no age. There's no too early, there's no too late. Programming can be learned at the tip of our fingers using the internet, right? I actually myself did a learning programming course for Python. It was I think a 5-module course on Coursera a few weeks back, and it's that simple, right? Learning programming is for everyone, And that's just one of the many examples, right? For example, if you take fintech as well, fintech doesn't require someone to be completely amazing at finance or completely amazing at technology, but it is a vital factor. Any student who understands how disruption works in the financial technology industry can get into it. And that's how I got into it. Personally, I believe that age doesn't play a vital factor unless it comes down to experience. But now that's also changing as well, right? Normally, we would have students complete their entire education and then look for a job. But then, like Ishaan said, one of his friends finishes his MIT education in 2 years and now is working at NASA at the age of 19. And that's truly amazing to see how age doesn't play a factor anymore. Even even though some industries still might be a bit on the a bit backward, focusing on how you need 20 years of experience before you can get a job as an employee. But what I feel is that a lot of industries are now changing with the times, with the digitalization, and that everything can be done by no matter like by anyone, no matter the age.
So I just like to add on real quickly to what Siddhant said. I completely agree with what he said, but I think we also have to take into account that we're not always going to be taken seriously because of our lack of experience in an industry. But they can't take away a technical ability of someone. So if you throw an engineering, a first year engineering student who's in IIT, and you just throw them into an environment, possibly they might not do as well as a fourth year student, but at least they have the technical ability to cope and understand from those opportunities. And that's why I think I'm going to name a few companies like Intel, NASA, Microsoft, IBM. Their programs and their internship for high school students to get a first-hand experience for a very long time. It's typically 3 to 12 weeks. Is a good amount of time wherein you can learn first-hand skills of how you are going to be placed in a job market. And people often get jobs straight from there if they're exceptional students. And because of that, having technical ability is one of the reasons why students are succeeding now. And that's what Siddhant said. In fields where experience is required, I think there is a little bit of a bias, but there's also some fields where experience is necessary. So no students expected to be a project manager on a ship within a year, because there's a certain amount of training that you have to go through for that. But like Siddhant said, like a programmer, if you know an extensive amount of JavaScript libraries, you could build a front-end website for anybody. And if you know a large amount of Python, you could build a very comprehensive back-end development system, like a management system for a company. It's actually what I've been doing in my spare time. I've been working with a couple of universities, namely some IITs, to link together their complete management system in order to accessibly share files between the different organizations. And because of that, they didn't care about my age. They cared about my technical ability. And if I wasn't good enough, they wouldn't have taken me, regardless of my age. And because of that, I think students have the opportunity to showcase their abilities in a lot of new fields, particularly, but in fields which are particularly hands-on and require some amount of knowledge of the subject matter deeper than what most people would have, which is highly obtained through experience. I think in those industries, you can't really argue about them being ageist because it does require experience.
Right, we're getting some really good and relatable answers today. Aryan?
Yeah, so both of you guys have mentioned it multiple times actually that how skill sets are being more valued right now, and how in lockdown anyone can learn anything even via internet, and it's becoming more accessible. So do you guys feel that after the pandemic is over, that there's going to be a shift in class from having workers that only have degrees, but actually employing more workers that are excelled in certain skills rather than just having a degree?
So I can take this because one of my personal heroes actually is speaking on this, and that's Elon Musk. So I think what we can take from his comments, even though they were slightly exaggerated, is it is not necessary to have a degree. It is preferred though. So I think if anyone's watched Hassan Minhaj's recent Netflix show, he does talk about this pretty much in depth. But I think something he missed was the potential increase in the number of people who don't have degrees right now, but the jobs that they're attaining. Now, there's always like a tag along to whatever statement that a company makes. You don't need a degree to get a job. You need the technical experience and the ability to get a job. Similarly, you don't need fancy, like you don't need insane amounts of money to get into a university. You need the necessary skills to get into a university, like an MIT or a Caltech. Now, in order to get into like a really good, well-paying job like Tesla or Microsoft or something, you don't need a degree. And we've seen that over the last 50 years, that's increased by about 16% of the number of people who are working at the company without a degree in higher positions. So that's not including staff. So that obviously is a positive, but then again, you also have to look at the technical ability of the people that are being hired. Now, since Microsoft has grown in the last 30 years, obviously, we've seen that the technical ability of the students that are being hired is much higher. And because of that, you have to be very, very good to get in without a degree. So it certainly makes it easier to get in with a degree, but it's not nearly as necessary as it once was. But I do think that a degree is recommended, especially for job opportunities. Again, I'm going to cite Hassan Minhaj on this because I think he encapsulated it perfectly. The average salary increase for a male with a degree and a male without a degree is $660,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money to be comparing two people with. I mean, the average job for a person without a degree is in the manufacturing sector. And the average job for a person with a computer science, an engineering degree would be something in mechanical engineering, which has a better pay. So because of that, I think it is advised to get a degree. But if you have the technical ability, I'd suggest focusing your time on honing in, perfecting your craft, rather than pursuing a degree in a subject that's not going to help you in the future.
All right. That was extremely insightful. Now, here's a question that people frequently ask people who have taken up initiatives as brilliant as yours, but it is a very important question. Where do you see Alumni Somnia in a couple of years?
So I think I can take that one. In a couple of years, we wish to expand all over India. We already have reached out to students in Bangalore and students like in certain parts of India. But what we wish to do is change the way the education system works, just by a little bit. And this is by helping startups grow, especially student startups, right? Like I mentioned at the start of this podcast, that student startups in the US and in other countries have gotten so much more attention from their colleges or from their universities or from their schools, right? And this is primarily due to the education structure. So what Alumni Somnia plans to do is to help students innovate and to create by getting them funding and by getting them the expert opinion or to get them expert knowledge, which normally a student wouldn't have. For example, let's say there's a student studying in Mumbai in an international school. He has very good teachers, but he doesn't have the technological expertise, let's say, to build an entire project. Even if he knows how to build a project, even if his ideas are perfect, he might not know a particular aspect of it. And that's why Alumni Somnia comes in. Alumni Somnia would just eradicate these problems for you. It would eradicate the problems that you would have while creating. And I feel like that's very vital for student-led projects, especially. And if you look at colleges such as IIT, IIM, they have a strong tendency to focus more towards academics. One of my friends is actually studying at an IIM, and when I spoke to him, he said, I spoke to him about our initiative, and he said, it's a great initiative, but it wouldn't work out in some colleges because of the way that the education system works. It's primarily because the education system works on getting studies, and then getting a job, right? So what we plan to do is we plan to change the system just by a little bit, by encouraging students to make startups. we want to make the impact that's possible. We want to make an impact that would potentially help other students follow our path, right? Because this has never been done before by students, especially in India. So we're trailblazing our path, and that's the notion that I strongly believe in, that trailblazing your path through life. And what I feel is that once Ishaan and I go to university, and once we grow up, we would still continue with Alumni Somnia, but integrate more within students. Allow students to head this project, now allow students to potentially build onto this project, because it is by students for students, correct? So what we strongly believe is that, to put it all into one line, is that students have the potential to innovate and create, and the only people who can recognize this potential are students. Students know their friends the best, and students know what is the potential for the students. The only issue comes with getting recognition for this. And getting recognition would be by making it a larger project, by getting funding, by getting expert opinions. And that's where Alumni Somnia comes in. And it's the perfect role to play to catalyze the student startup process.
And I think in a larger sense, to add on to what Siddhant was saying, Alumni Somnia is not just an avenue for people to get funding and for them to speak to a CEO. Because, I mean, if they cold email them for a year, the CEO will get annoyed enough and speak to them for an hour. That's really not what Alumni Somnia is all about. Alumni Somnia is an opportunity-based platform in order for student projects and for student startups and ventures, for them to get the necessary equipment, resources, funding, and obviously guidance, in order for them to take their project from the current stage, whatever stage there might be ideation or prototyping, or actually producing it in market and marketing it. It's to take it from that stage and grow it into a successful company or a startup that they are proud of for working with. And that's going to have multi-tiers of effects. So that's, okay, one aspect of it is the university applications. But a deeper rooted meaning to it is they're going to be more innovative. They're going to be more creative. They have first-hand experiences working at a company. That could be their full-time job in the future, or it could be something on their resume to talk about that they created a project. They are innovators by blood, by heart, and by mind. And I think the most important thing for students now is to take and make full use of platforms that are existing like Alumni Somnia and truly grow their potential so that they get national recognition for whatever they're good at. And we've seen that happen with a lot of people in the past, and I think it's going to happen even more in the future, and we'd like Alumni Somnia to be a part of that future.
All right, that this episode has been absolutely brilliant. We've loved having you on, and we hope you enjoyed as well. Aryan.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for being a part of our podcast and being a guest. We'd like to end this podcast by asking guys if you guys want to plug any socials for Alumni Somnia, where they can.
Oh yeah. Firstly, to everyone listening, go follow Purple Space Org on Instagram. Aryan's been a really good friend to me, especially back in the day. I love speaking to him, and I fondly remember your birthday. Um, but yeah, you can check us out at Alumni Somnia on Instagram. You can check us out on our website www.alumnisomnia.in. Stay tuned for any news publications. Stay tuned for blogs that are written by Siddhant. You can find that out at Blogout. I think he can talk about that more.
Yeah, it's just another one of my projects for blogging, and that also helps students who are bloggers. But I think our primary focus would be here is to promote Alumni Somnia. And like Ishaan said, you can follow us and follow our activity on all our social media. And you can hear about our next webinars, which we promote all the time on our Instagram. And
yeah, all our recordings are on our website, so you can check all those out. The conversations have been absolutely amazing with the professionals, and they've been a variety of conversations. We've had the CEO of Aditya Birla Insurance, and then we've had someone who's worked with ISRO. It's like the variety of conversations that we've had is massive and it's fluctuating. And because of that, I think Alumni Somnia is a great platform to get overall expansive amount of learning.
All right. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll put all your socials up. So stay tuned for more episodes.